So again, good morning, and as you've seen, I'm Italian, so you'll have to listen to my Italian accent, and hopefully will be always comprehensible for you. So I'm going to talk about Art Deco, starting from Paris, where it was celebrated in 1925. But then seeing how it spread all over the globe, focusing on a few case studies, also considering that I digged in our collection and in our library just to present you material mostly from our collection, from the Wilsonian collection and library. And we did an exhibition a few years ago about Art Deco from Europe to the United States, but I won't focus on the United States today because Madeleine Deschamps is going to talk about it, about this subject later. I would like to start with this design drawing for a poster for the 1925 exhibition, because in a way it shows the characters, the characteristics of Art Deco, which are symmetry, geometry, angularity, and also bright colors, because they were used very often, bright colors, compared also to Art Nouveau, which had like softer colors usually. And this was is a design drawing, is in our collection, and we're very proud of having it, because the poster was never printed. There was a competition in 1923, and this was one of the posters presented, and we don't know why it was not chosen. I think it's beautiful, and really presents also the, in a way, the global character of Art Deco. And you can see the architecture in the background. It's architecture from Morocco, which was in a way a great influence on Art Deco, and also French architects started to build Art Deco architecture in Morocco, Tunisia, and Algeria, which were like the French colonies. These two posters instead were selected and printed, and they are in our collection. I think for me, the most interesting one is the one by Charles Lupeau, that presents, like really interprets the title of the exhibition, which was Art, Industrial and Decorative Arts. So you can see like the smoke of the factories, like that is covering the flowers, in particularly the rose, which is probably the main flower of Art Deco. They stylized the rose in contrast with the iris, which was like the flower of Art Nouveau. And the naked figure is anyway a recurrent motif in Art Deco. You have seen it in the drawing for the poster, but this was the official medallion of this like beautiful figure, stylized figure, and with a corbeille of flower, with always having these baskets of flowers. It's another typical motif of Art Deco that you can see in both sides of the medal. And for sure, one of the most typical or leitmotifs of Art Nouveau is the frozen fountain. And we have one in our lobby that comes from a theater. But this was the entrance to the 1925 Paris exhibition. This motif of the frozen fountain, that as it has been defined by critics after, you can see it in these two images, the gate to the main gate to the expo, and this beautiful screen by Edgar Brandt, an ironwork artist that was active also in New York very much. And the motif is, for example, also in this set of plates by Johnson Brothers, like presented in the English Pavilion in Paris. So Le Fontaine was the title of this line, which was produced for a while. And as I said, it spread all over Art Deco. You can see it like interpreted by Carlo Rizzarda, an iron work artist from Italy. And you can see how it's a bit more sculptural. And well, in our lobby, the big celebration, and I love that the architect Mark Hampton really used like the motif of the frozen fountain to create a real fountain, when actually it was on the grill on the facade of the Norris Theater in Norristown, Pennsylvania. And again, the fountain was a motif of the Barcelona exposition in 1929. Like these lighted and colored fountains were a technical something really new at the time, and so they became like also one of the elements of the main posters celebrating the Barcelona Expo. So, but let's go back to Paris and to the Paris exhibition. So, for France, it was a way to like show their power and importance in the field of decorative arts. A power that has been a bit like forgotten after like the 18th century. And so they created at least 2 pavilions which were just focused on their decorative arts. One Française, and the other one was the pavilion of a collector. I'm focusing on the Ambassade Française because it's particularly interesting for me. We have the complete portfolio. You see the cover is by René Gabriel, and this is one probably of the most recurrent images of the interiors in 1925. Maurice Dufresne, who started as an Art Nouveau artist and then evolved into more geometric stylized Art Deco. He presented this Petit Salon, and you can see here more the influence, like a more decorative side of Art Deco, looking back to the 18th century French furniture. While here René Gabriel, the same who did the graphic design for the catalogue of the Ambassade Française, is presenting much more geometric, clean lines and this motif of angularity, which is also typical of Art Deco. And again, the bright colors are very typical. And finally, the fumoir, like the smoker's room for usually used by men, decorated with lacquered panels by Jean Dunant. Jean Dunant was, you can see here, like the use of symmetry, the geometry, and Jean Dunant we'll see his work later because we have 2 masterpieces by him in the Wilsonian collection. And finally, Rob Mallet-Stevin, he is probably the most interesting of the architects that we define Art Deco, because he was in a way looking at also the modern movement, Le Corbusier, but he added something more, like he added a kind of, he didn't despise decoration. He added it, but always translated in a with the geometric motifs. And next to the Ambassade Française, you can see like the hall that he designed, you can see the pavilion of tourism that he designed, and you can see how it stands out next to the other buildings of the expo. And this motif of like these layered motifs, you can see it in other buildings, Art Deco buildings. This is a building in called the Clock Building in Tunis by a French architect that he's definitely inspired by Mallet-Stevin's pavilion of tourism. And again, the same element comes back in Paul Klee. He was a French architect who taught in the University of Philadelphia, so he was very influential on many architects, American architects, among them Polevinsky was very active here in Miami Beach. And here you can see the same motif of the tower, and this use of the also the tower as a element of the coin of the building that has been then used in so many buildings of Miami Beach. These are two postcards: the Essex House, which is still standing, and by Henry Hohauser, and the senator that was unfortunately demolished a long time ago. So another characteristic very strong of the Expo, the Paris Expo, was the presence of the pavilions of the French department stores, the Grand Magasin. And so that also shows how the Art Deco was in a way a commercial style. It was affordable in a way because you could find a lot of objects in these department stores, which became very popular starting from the 10s. They started to have their own workshops directed in many cases by famous artists. For example, Primavera, which means spring in Italian, was the workshop of the Printemps department store, and this was their pavilion. I find it particularly interesting, especially like the use of this dome, which was in concrete, reinforced concrete, but then with the decorative motif of these glass small circles that look almost like pebbles from the beach, and they were made in glass by Lalique. And we have in the collection a few objects which were sold and produced by Primavera. This is a plate that represents in a way a stylized representation of their pavilion in Paris. And there were tiles, more decorative tiles, again the female figure, and the rose, the stylized rose, and these knife rests, which are like very playful in orange, with representing several stylized animals that were sold also in Primavera. But it was a competition among the department stores. Another beautiful pavilion was also, they called important architects in the case before, it was Henri Sauvage. Here they called, I think it was, well, actually they were less known, at least for me, but they called very important architects. And here La Maîtrise, which was the workshop of Lafayette, you can see another typical motif of Art Deco, the sunburst at the entrance, made by the company Gruber in Paris. And we have two posters related to Lafayette. This was opera bouffe that they represented at Lafayette. And the design is by Dufresne. Maurice Dufresne was the director of the Maîtrise workshop. And a very modern expression. They used several graphic designers, and they also called like the most modernist ones. Like this is the case of Cassandra, that uses like this kind of photograph and graphic design at the same time. And finally, Le Bon Marché had its own pavilion, and you have here like a drawing from the collection that shows also like the playfulness of the Art Deco style. In many cases, you can see in the background the silhouette of the Bon Marché, and this figure holding presents to promote promote like probably the Christmas period when you are supposed to go shopping. And so the department stores were a way to spread the style in Paris, but also very much in the United States. And you can see also how they use the same motifs, they repeat them. And Lord & Taylor presented an exhibition in 1928, and the design was by Jacques Kahn of the interiors, and they invited French decorators and designers to create spaces inside. And another very important exhibition was at Macy's the same year, but in this case it was presenting decorative arts from all over Europe. And so we have an example from Germany. Bruno Paul was like the star architect at the time, presented this living room, and we're very proud to have this chest, the buffet, in the collection of the Wolsoniana in Genoa. It's also interesting to see that Germany was invited by Macy's to present its new products, but it was not invited in Paris because of the war. So there was not a German pavilion in Paris because, yes, after World War I, Germany was not very much well seen by the international scene. And another curiosity, as you probably know, also the United States were not present in Paris, and in this case they were invited, they were welcome, but it was decided, like it was a governmental decision, that the United States didn't have enough modern decorative arts at the time. So they sent a big committee, and with also designers, and there were directors of museums, of department stores, and then they came back and they decided to spread this new style in the United States, so that they could, in a way, modernize also the decorative arts in the United States. And for example, Reuben Halley, he went to visit the expo, and he said that he was so much influenced by Cubist paintings that he created this line, the Ruba Rhombic, thinking of Cubist paintings. So I selected a few nations from the Paris exhibition, thinking also of our collection, and thinking also that Austria was so important for the development of Art Deco, because if you think of the Wiener Werkstätte, founded in 1903 by Joseph Hofmann and Kolo Moser, they already started like a much more stylized, geometric type of decoration, and their idea also was to create the Gesamtkunstwerk, so which means like the total work of art, so like so that a space, a house would have been like designed with the same aesthetic taste all over, from the handle to the floor to the sleepers of the owner of the home. And their pavilion was designed by Joseph Hofmann, and so you can see also in a way like the dichotomy in the Wiener Werkstätte, in a way more geometric and more linear and clean with Joseph Hofmann, and more decorative with Dagobert Peche, who designed the cover. And I just wanted to show you two pieces, like jewelry pieces from the Wiener Werkstätte, because it's a recent donation that we received by Daniel Morris from Historical Design. It's a great addition to the Wilsonia that has never collected jewelry. And here there are two examples of where you can see like the typical use of black and white in the Wiener Werkstätte in the Secession in Vienna. And the clip brooch is a very interesting piece because was used by the waiters at the Cabaret Fledermaus, which was the famous cabaret designed by the architects of the Wiener Werkstätte and opened in 1907. And you can see the logo of the Cabaret Fledermaus, and in the center, like this sleek female figure. It was really an example of Gesamtkunstwerk, where not only everything was designed by the Wiener Werkstätte, but also the music and the shows that were all created by the same group of artists. And here are some other examples, like, again, like the Wasserorger, if you think of the frozen fountain. These are motifs which are really very early in the 10th, and also the figure in the Arnold Nekansky textile sample is very like typically Art Deco, even with the small two stylized pots with the flowers. And again, showing two other great pieces from our collection. The first one is Hilda Jesser. She's one of the many female artists that worked in the Wiener Werkstätte, with the Wiener Werkstätte. Especially they were focusing on ceramics and textiles. And it's interesting that Mickey Watson, when he bought this vase, it was attributed to Joseph Hofmann, because naturally, as in many cases, the important figures get the name on many objects, but then we discovered that it was Hilda Jesser, a very interesting artist in the Wiener Werkstätte. The other one is a piece by Hofmann, which is made of the glass, uranium glass, like this special yellow-green color that cannot be used any longer because it was very toxic, and it was very toxic. So after Austria, the Soviet Union, okay, the Soviet Union was invited. Actually, it was invited as Russia, but they presented themselves as a Soviet Union, and their pavilion was for sure one of the most striking ones. It was made out of wood, very like pointing out the structure of the building, and the architect Melnikov was a part of the constructivist movement. The cover was made by Rodchenko, so all the main modernist artists from the Soviet Union were invited, and the ceramics inside were very interesting because you can see the influence of Russian folk art in the decorations. This is a page from the catalog, and again, you can see like the figure of Lenin, the star, the hammer and sickle, and this plate, which is in our collection, is very interesting because yes, you can see like the lettering with some floral stylized decorations, and the portrait of Lenin, which was like the official portrait made by Nathan Altman in 1920 at the Kremlin, and then was used in many cases even on the ceramic. And then I forgot to say, but maybe you know already, that the ceramics were a way, they were called later agitprop ceramic propaganda, so they were propaganda ceramics. Artists were invited to decorate them since at the time after the revolution there was a shortage in paper for newspapers and posters, so the leftovers of the imperial porcelain were used by artists to celebrate the revolution. And another piece that is in the collection and is published on the catalog is this piece by Natalia, a woman suing the red flag. Another big presence in our collection is Dutch design. So I wanted to show you the pavilion. You can see how Art Deco spread, like for example in Europe, but in every country with a special taste, which was influenced by like the local tradition. And here you can see it's with what we call Amsterdam school, using mostly bricks as building material, and with shapes and elements, decorative elements that come from Indonesia, because we have to think that the Dutch East Indies were a colony at the time. And the living room is also is the same that is in our collection. Is a very precious living room by Michel de Klerk, that is so precious that in Amsterdam, when they did an exhibition about the Amsterdam school, they had to borrow our room from Miami Beach, because it's like the best preserved. And this is a vase by Colin Brander, which was inside the Dutch pavilion. You can see like these patterns, very particular in the Dutch production. So the Dutch design has always been very focused on geometry, but you can see here, like in this vase, like again, elements very very deco, like the stylized roses. And also, I wanted just to show you the beauty of this textile with the motif of the waves and the birds. This repetition and this geometrization of nature was a motif very typical of in Dutch design already, like starting from the turn of the century. And like this is just a fun element. The vase is not very Art Deco, but definitely the stadium is an example of great architecture in Amsterdam, and is still there. And finally, the Italian pavilion, because we're also very strong with Italian material, and you can see how the Italian pavilion didn't really reply to the request of modern and decorative arts. This is really a very classicist heavy pavilion that in a way looks at the Triumphal Arch by Armando Brasini. Was we would say here a Beaux-Arts architect, very interesting, that was did a lot of projects also during the fascist regime. And you can see here the contrast between like the Italian pavilion and the beautiful tower by Mallet Stevens. So the Italian pavilion was, yes, showed many materials, but also inside the Grand Palais in Paris there were different sections. And so this was the gate of the Italian section at the Grand Palais. This gate, which is in the collection, is another masterpiece by Alessandro Mazzucotelli, was the wrought iron artist for Milan. When you go to Milan and you see like the beautiful buildings from the 1910s to the, let's say, from the turn of the century to the 1920s, usually the wrought iron gates and balustrades are designed by him. And inside the Italian pavilion, sorry, the Italian section, there was also an artist, a very interesting artist, Herta Ottolenghi-Wedekind, that was German, lived in Italy, and she designed these very particular patterns in textiles and in carpets. In the same time, while there was an exhibition, an international exhibition in Paris, there was also an international exhibition of decorative arts in Italy, in Monza. It's very important because it became then in 1933 the Triennale of Milan. And so it was a way for Italy, as in France they did the 1925 Expo, for Italy having this biennial in Monza near Milan was a way again to revive the Italian decorative arts, which were very like traditional. And you can see in the poster the motif of the gazelle, which is another leitmotif of Art Deco. And you can see how it was interpreted in this beautiful tea set in Bombay, and also here on this screen by Kenneth McIntyre. I don't know, I'm not sure about the pronunciation. And even in, you can see it in this on the chair by Vittorio Zecchin, who was an artist active in Venice. They presented this beautiful furniture, which is in the Genoa Wolfsonian collection, in 1923. So you can see like the influence. We can call it deco, but it's very, in a way, rustic as a shape. But the decorations are for sure influenced by Gustav Klimt in a way, but also by the Byzantine mosaics of Venice. And this piece in the Genoa collection is considered one of the masterpieces of Italian deco. Again, Giulio Cambellotti was a Roman designer, sculptor, who looked at the furniture of the Roman countryside, and then he decorated and added some elements in ivory and ebony that represented the Roman countryside. These two figures are two women peasants, and they are like caryatids, and in the background it's this kind of mysterious landscape that looks like clouds, but actually they are the sheep of the cattle of the shepherds. And this is the image of the piece inside in Monza at the 1923 exhibition. As you can see, like the Wiener Werkstätte were very influential on Art Deco, and they were influential on many ceramists in Italy, for example. For sure, you can see like almost it seems almost like the same decorator for this vase by Andlovitz and the Wiener Werkstätte store in Vienna. And so you can see this is again a more kind of Art Deco that looks at the Italian vernacular tradition. This is the Margherita, which means daisy, service presented in Monza in 1925. And then it's very interesting to see like how from the 1920s many designers like completely changed towards modern and cleaner lines just in a few years. So from the 1920s to the 1930s, like the design becomes much more clean and modern. While talking about Italian Art Deco, we can't forget about Gio Ponti. Like he really looks at the Greco-Roman heritage of Italy and then modernize it with using these blue colors and with this geometric, beautiful scheme on the plate. And naturally, the expos were a way to spread the new taste and the new products, but also magazines. And Domus, that still exists now, was in Italy, founded by Gio Ponti, was in Italy like the best way to know about new architecture and new design and decorative arts. Another piece by Gio Ponti. Again, as you can see, like looking at the 18th century furniture, but making it much more geometric and modern. And again, talking of strong colors, this is a very interesting set by Gioconti called Barbara, and it's in the collection of Genoa. And then you can see it was produced in Riga, so by a Latvian artist. And we can see how the shapes were like influenced and copied by artists all over Europe in this case. And to show how Art Deco spread all over the world, I think this piece in the Wilsonian collection is a very strong example. We don't have many French pieces because Mickey Wasson always thought that the best pieces are already in American museums, so he always concentrated more on Austria, Italy, and the Netherlands. But this is really a masterpiece by Rapin. The shape was presented in 1925, and the decoration is later, 1932. And when I called the Sèvres, like the manufacturer and the museum, they said that there are just two of these pieces. One is here, and the other one is in Japan at the Maison French-Japanese. You can see like this representation of it's a kind of colonial representation, like France all over the world, and you can see also the United States with Native Americans and with the gazelle in the background. So obviously, apart from the expo in Paris, another way to present the French decor was were the ocean liners. That was for every nation, but for sure France was very powerful on that. They launched the Ile-de-France in 1927, but probably the most iconic is the Normandy, launched in 1935. And again, like how was so popular that Peter Müller-Munkh, an American designer who came from Germany, created this iconic piece inspired by the shape of the hull of the Normandy. So the beautiful Normandy pitch produced until the early 40s. And the interiors were naturally like represented the luxury and the beauty of the French production. And you see like they're presented inside the catalog, Le Grand Salon, and we are happy to have the chair from the Grand Salon, again with this like a modernized version of a 18th century chair with the motif of the flowers, stylized flowers. And here again the same grand hall, Le Grand Salon, which was decorated by Jean Dunand. We have seen before like the lacquered panels of Jean Dunand inside the Ambassade Française, but these were the decorations that you could see inside the Grand Salon in the Normandy boat. These two panels are instead in our collection, and it's again like how Art Deco spread in the United States, and in this case was probably Madame Chadwick in Palm Beach, probably was traveling on the Normandy. She saw like the beautiful panels by Jean Dunand and asked him to create two for her mansion in Palm Beach. And they are really copies, like smaller scale copies of the beautiful lacquered panels in the Normandy, and now they are now in our collection. Another connection with Palm Beach, which is very interesting, is like this garden, which was presented inside the expo. There were several gardens designed by landscape architects, and this one, which was yes, like the Jardin de la Ville de Paris, we find it 3 years later, in 1928, in Palm Beach. It was like was the art dealer from New York, one Berberian, who invited Joseph Maras to design the same garden in Palm Beach. Unfortunately, I tried to look for it, and well, there is no trace of it. The house is still there, but unfortunately, where the garden was, now there is a garage. But this was a discovery that we made during the exhibition at the Cité de l'Architecture, because they have the drawings by Joseph Maras for the garden. And again, at the Wilsonian, we also collect like the we like to look at the process in, for example, for a graphic work, like in this case it's a diploma, was an etching, was is like the process for the diploma that was given during the expo in Paris. And the artist is Louis Regal, and it's interesting to know that Louis Regal was also one of the artists who decorated the Waldorf Astoria. You probably know that the Wilsonian has the archives of Schutz and Weaver, so we have the drawings for the Waldorf Astoria and of their interiors, which were made by Louis Regal. So many French artists were invited to the United States to decorate the Art Deco buildings in the early 1930s. And you can see here, like it's a tribute to like a French, again, like 18th century France. I just wanted to show you two examples of Art Deco outside in Latin America. And we're not very strong in our collection on Latin America, but I thought that at least we have one of the iconic buildings from the 1920s in Latin America, which is Palazzo Salvo Palacio Salvo in Montevideo, and which has a copy of it in Buenos Aires as Palacio Barolo. So Palacio Barolo was designed by Mario Palanti, a Milanese architect, invited to create this monumental skyscraper, and then was invited by the brothers Salvo in Montevideo to do it again. And we have the blueprints, but they were like, the photos were not so strong. So I'm showing you here two photographs of the drawings. And the building is really incredible. It's a very bombastic Art Deco. But you can see, if you look at the details, like the angularity, there are elements which we can define Art Deco. And inside the decorations, I have no idea how if they are preserved now. Unfortunately, I've never visited it, but we have the photographs of the decorations, and you can see, like, again, a gazelle and these like elements, like decorative patterns, very geometric, and this figure with the typical flapper haircut, which was an element typical also of Art Deco women at the time. And it's very interesting, like, looking at our collection, how everything is connected. Like this medal, we have a lot of medals, and in a way, just through a medal, we can discover the story of an exhibition. There was this exhibition, the Industrias Nacionales in Montevideo, which was held in 1928 inside Palacio Salvo, and it was like when they opened the Palacio, they did this exhibition. So in 1928, it was an exhibition to promote modern production of decorative arts in Montevideo. And we have two beautiful Art Deco brooches produced by Rama, an artist from Montevideo. I tried to research him. I'm still like floating because I couldn't find anything. The only The only interesting thing is that at least I know that their office, their workshop was in Montevideo, and the Rex, where also there was a Cinema Rex, a typical name for Art Deco cinemas, if we think of the famous Rex in Paris. And then again, through a plaquette, which is definitely the same sculptor who designed the previous medal. You can see like this winged figure above the Rambla Sur, which was like the promenade designed and opened in 1935 in Montevideo. So I wish we had more material also on Brazil, because Copacabana can be considered somehow like a development of a sea resort like Miami Beach. But we have these beautiful posters, some beautiful posters from like the 1940s. And then I found that we have this drawing of a pavilion. Mark Freeman was an American artist who documented architecture in New York and pavilions in many world fairs, among them like the Chicago, New York, 1939. And we went to Antwerp and documented many pavilions. So Brazil and Uruguay were not present in Paris, but Brazil was present with this beautiful Art Deco building in Antwerp. And how we can't forget that probably one of the most famous monumental statues in the world was done in Rio by a French Art Deco sculptor, Paul Landowski. We don't have anything about him except for a medal, but it's not much deco. So I just wanted to show you the maquette, which is preserved in the Musée des Années 30 in Boulogne-Billancourt, which is just next to Paris, and is very similar as a collection to the Wilsonian, and they have a big archive of Landowski. And to tell the story of this piece, which was commissioned in the early 1920s, and finally the statue, with the help of naturally engineers, was erected and became an incredible attraction. And you can see like how the head and the hands were made by the sculptor in Paris and sent by boat, while the other part was built directly in Brazil. And like to show how Art Deco is still influencing us now, I want to show this mobile, which is inside the Bridge Tender House, just outside on the sidewalk of the Wilsonian. So two designers, German designers, Tullman and Hettler, were inspired by this panel from a department store, like the One Maker, which is in our collection, and created a mobile where they put plants in balance with the chair, just to show like how our ecosystem is in a fertile balance, and inscribing plants inside a circle, like as an homage to the geometry of Art Deco. And you can see it outside in our beautiful Bridge Tender House, which was saved and donated to the Wilsonian in the early 90s, when the bridge on 27th Avenue was restored, was redone, and so the Bridge Tender House is now part of our collection. Is a beautiful example of Art Deco structure that we can enjoy walking along the Wilsonian. Thank you.